Create with Fran Sidney. Hello everyone and welcome to the show. I'm so pleased today to record episode 48. We are going towards a very good number, and to celebrate we are going to talk about why sometimes we don't achieve our goals. We're not getting what we want, and we build the false belief that we are unable to reach what we want, and therefore we are kind of stuck. And that, let's say that taking down those old beliefs that are no longer serving us is a very important thing, isn't it? So let's see what is missing sometimes, why we are not getting what we want. We're gonna just talk about one aspect. And this aspect is really how we look at other people, how we build a rapport with them by noticing their body language. When we are talking to other people, we are always telling a lot more than we think. It isn't just what we're saying, but the way we look at them, the way we cross our legs or arms, the tone of our voice. If we are rude, everything makes an impression. Everything can change completely the outcome. And sometimes, even meaning the best, we can make a huge mistake. And there are some stories where somebody went in, for example, into a shop or to a restaurant and wanted to have a complaint about something that was wrong, maybe some faulty goods. But because of their very poor way of handling the case, the shop assistant or the restaurant owner didn't handle that well, and they ended up losing up. And so it's not that it is impossible for them to achieve their goal, but they just didn't know exactly how to use their own body language and how to understand other people's body language to create that rapport, that communication where we truly understand what we want from one another. Rapport means, in English, the kind of harmony, affinity, or accord that we have with somebody else. And when we do not have that rapport, we're not going to get friends, we're not going to get promotions, or even earn what we want, because something is missing and people are able to tell that it's missing. So it is really vital when we are thinking about a goal and why we're not getting there. Sometimes all is missing is the signal that our body, our language, our posture, our spine are telling to other people. And so to build this rapport with other people, we have to find, of course, something common that we are sharing with them. So when we go, for example, to a shop, and this is a really bad example, but I'm saying, just to bring my point to a thing, you might have a very prickly item to bring back and say, well, there is an issue with it. And you might think that maybe the customer service assistant is not very helpful. You might notice that maybe they are Greek and you've been in Greece and you speak the language, and you can ask, are you actually from Greece? I've been there. And you start chatting, and after a while you will notice they were actually more flexible, more helpful, because you have found something in common, or something that you both like and appreciate, which is mother country. So you want to build rapport with people to achieve what you want before you start thinking it is impossible for you to get what you want. Some people, by mistake, they attack others to achieve what they want. So they start by insulting them and putting them down, hoping that by making them feel guilty, they will achieve what they want. But I think that strategy is not a very good one. I'm not sure about your view on that. So going back to the guy that had a job interview and then another, then had 20 and he still wasn't getting the job. There are things that can happen so that people can really perceive who we are truly and honestly and accurately, instead of having a bad perception. So if we are feeling very low in confidence, you might give a wrong impression and even communicate that we are maybe angry or frustrated, and actually we're just shy. So it's important to see how we are portraying ourselves to other people with our body language. You see, for example, when you see two people arguing, they're not looking at one another in the proper way, and they're mismatching one another. So you look at their behavior, the way they are looking at one another, the way they are moving their body is completely different. from a couple of friends who are having maybe a nice discussion or a conversation about something. So our body will match what we are thinking and not always what we are saying. That's quite a small difference, isn't it? You will also see that maybe you're going to your job interview and you realized straight away you're not able to build this rapport. This person doesn't like you, and you can just feel it. It's something that goes beyond words. You just feel they don't like you. What is there? Can you work out what it is before the job interview is over? Or maybe you are talking to a guy that you really like and you realize his body language is telling you, no, you're not for me. So how can you change that? Is it possible to change that? Sometimes it is, right? And this thing of liking someone, of not liking someone, is very much based on this body language. One very subtle way that we can use to build this rapport is to match and to mirror, as we call in NLP, the position, the body language of the other person. So we are going pretty much in the same direction. Obviously, I'm not saying to copy exactly what we do, but you have to look at the facial expression, how they're breathing, are they gesturing or not. So you really want to be a little bit similar to match them. So, for example, if you are maybe working with a person who is very agitated and you want to calm them down, let's say that you're a paramedic or you are working in a shop and there is a customer that is really agitated, or you are working for an airline and there is an issue. If you want to calm down people, you have to come from where they are and then lower down their breathing pattern and their speed of speech and everything else. So you start by matching them, and then very slowly you go down and down until you bring them down to the level where you want to be. So if a person is screaming and you just keep speaking very slowly and very differently from them, they might not be absolutely connecting with you. But if you start by shouting and say, okay then, I get you, and then you say, right, what's going on here? And then you lower down. When you're starting from where they are, you're meeting them where they are. And so don't always think that you are not able to communicate with people. Sometimes it's a picking up the conversation where it is and then bring it to a more comfortable level by slowly progressing towards the harmony that you want, the level, the tone, the voice volume that you want, and the speed of breathing, so that you can calm down the person. And so that's very important. These are very subtle little things, but they can make the whole big difference between success and failure. Therefore, building a different image of yourself, and instead of thinking, oh, I fail at everything, or maybe you just didn't realize the body language of the other person was so important and you missed a very important clue. So have faith. There is something very interesting about the words that we use. Many of us have a tendency of rephrasing things that other people have said, maybe for the sake of accuracy, but sometimes we rephrase them in such a way that we involuntarily make them feel we misunderstand them, or we're not really in tune with them at all, or we're even putting them down. So be very careful. If you are trying to build a rapport, you want to really use the same words that other people are using. For example, I like to use the word absolutely. I use it quite a lot. So if you want it to be matching with my dialogue and you notice that I use this word all the time, you might want to start using it. And I start thinking subconsciously, wow, this person is just like me. They use this word all the time. I don't think this logically, it just flows naturally. So there is a bit of building of rapport by using common words. This is very typical of us when we are talking with a person that maybe has pluri degrees and speaks in a very convoluted manner, maybe even to show off a humongous vocabulary, and we just speak basic English or Greek or Italian or whatever. And if we keep using two very different types of vocabulary sets, there will be a mismatch in the communication. And also there is a place and a time where to use our jargon and when we don't need it. And therefore it would be very inappropriate to use it out of context. And this is also a way that people can make you feel extremely uncomfortable. If you go for a job interview and they start using very, very selective, very jargon-based words and you are completely out of your place, you might actually know the topic but not know the words that are commonly used in that kind of field and feel very out of your place. And so there could be a place there for the HR manager to actually think, well, am I talking in such a way that makes people feel uncomfortable? Because maybe what we use here in our company is not exactly the vocabulary that this new person would know about. So do I want this person to feel good or to feel out of place? Now let's have a look again at what we've learned today. We talked about how our body pattern, our movement, our words, our tone of voice can give different signals to other people. And therefore, that's also how we're gonna feel. If we start smiling, we're gonna feel different. If we look down, we're gonna feel different compared to how we would feel if we were looking up. So there are lots of things that we can do to improve the rapport that we have with other people. Now, as an exercise, I want you to have a look at one conversation that went wrong with somebody in the past and that determined that something good did not happen. Think about it. How was your body language? What type of words were you using? Were you diminishing the other person without meaning to? Were you using a vocabulary that was beyond their reach or not appropriate? Were you speaking a little bit too fast, too loud? Or maybe they were very agitated and you kept talking and grinding down very, very slowly and very much pacing them down all the way to a point that they were irritated. What was going on? Or was that the opposite? You were absolutely perfect and the other person could not read your body language and could not match you at all, and therefore you felt that you didn't just like one another. So looking back at all your goals and how you want to achieve them and how you feel looking on the past events, well, I can never do this, I can never do that. These are just big generalizations. Many times what really happened was, of course this is not every single time, it just occasionally you realize that if you just made more efforts, maybe you or maybe the other person, the conversation would have been so much more fluent and you would have got so much more useful information for whatever the purpose was of this conversation, and you would have got a much better result. And this is also very important within our families. There could be times when your own children come over and ask you, or maybe your in-laws, and say, well, can I have this, can I have that? But the way they ask could be such a way that puts you completely off. Maybe they're rude, or maybe they are demanding, or they might feel a little bit entitled in the way they ask you to do something for them, and that makes you feel really crossed, so you're not willing to cooperate. I think it's really important when you start a conversation, if you start by shredding the other person down in your way, in your little way of showing how much better you are, then you're not really very likely to achieve a very good rapport with this person. And so even if you might achieve what you want, it's not going to be in a long-term win. So it's always good to uplift one another, make the other person feel good about you. Even if you're not agreeing on something, just find something maybe in common, or maybe if not, maybe just keep the tone of a conversation pleasant, look at people in the eyes. And when you're on the phone, which does still happen nowadays, remember, if you're smiling, people can tell, and it makes such a big difference. So there we go, and that was it for today. Only 15 minutes of talking about NLP rapport with other people. I on purpose missed completely of the eye clues and what we can tell when people are looking right, left, up and down, because it doesn't really fit the purpose of a podcast, because it's very visual and it is an auditory program and you will be very busy looking in the mirror instead of listening. So that doesn't really fit. But I hope that was helpful to maybe identify some areas where we can all improve. I'm sure I can do the same and look back and say, oh, I could have done this differently. It's always good to learn and to go forward. And I hope that you have enjoyed this episode, and we'll be back next time for more information on how to feel great about ourselves, about our life, and just really look at every experience that we have, not as a failure, but as just feedback what can I do different next time. So thank you very much for being with me today, and I hope you will be able to write maybe a positive review for me on Apple iTunes or Podbean or whatever platform you like. I never tend to see where they are, these reviews. It's very hard for me because I'm logged in as myself, so it's a little bit of an issue. But thank you so much for liking and sharing the episode, and I hope you will have a great week. Take care. Bye bye. You have listened to Create with Fran Sidney.